Have you ever felt like your mind operates on a profoundly different frequency than those around you? As if you're perceiving the world through a lens of crystalline clarity, while others navigate through a perpetual, comforting haze? That the more you grasp the world's deepest truths, the more you see the unseen patterns, the more you discern the hidden currents beneath the superficial froth of everyday life, the more alone you become. It's a sensation akin to hearing the silent, resonant hum of the cosmos while everyone else is captivated by a fleeting pop song. You're attuned to a deeper, more challenging melody, and the dissonance between your internal world and the external one grows exponentially. It's not merely a fleeting feeling, it's a profound existential disconnect, a chasm that widens with every layer of understanding you painstakingly peel back. Society, in its relentless, almost instinctual pursuit of comfort, consensus, and convenient fictions, often recoils with a visceral unease from the very minds capable of illuminating its deepest illusions. Why does this happen? Because true intelligence, in its purest, most unadulterated form, becomes a piercing, unblinking spotlight, not just on the world's grand mechanisms, but, more uncomfortably, on the unexamined lives of those who inhabit it. It forces a stark confrontation with uncomfortable, often unsettling realities, and that confrontation to the vast majority feels less like an invitation to enlightenment and more like an existential threat. This isn't just a quirky modern phenomenon, a byproduct of our hyper-connected yet paradoxically isolating digital age. It's a timeless, almost archaeological truth articulated with brutal honesty and unyielding rigor by one of philosophy's most unyielding voices, Arthur Schopenhauer. He dared to suggest that for some, particularly those endowed with heightened intellectual capacities, the very gift of intellect is not a blessing, a golden key to boundless joy, but rather a profoundly isolating curse, a source of persistent, often profound, melancholic solitude. Today, we will plunge into Schopenhauer's radical, unvarnished perspective to understand precisely why the intelligent person, armed with the sharpest of minds, so often finds themselves an intrinsic outsider, a solitary voyager navigating a vast, indifferent sea of conventional contentment. To truly grasp the intricate mechanisms by which intelligence can become a source of profound isolation, we must first understand the fundamental, relentless force, the very engine, the primal, churning core that Schopenhauer believed drove all existence, the will. Imagine, if you can, a blind, irrational, insatiable, ceaseless striving. This is not a conscious, deliberate will in the human sense, not a personal desire or a rational choice, but a cosmic, primordial energy that underlies and animates every single thing in the phenomenal world. It is the raw, unthinking, unceasing impulse behind all phenomena, from the silent, determined push of a seed breaking through soil to become a towering oak, to the deepest, most complex human ambition for power, love, or artistic creation. It is the unquenchable thirst that fuels life itself, never truly satisfied, always seeking, always in restless, perpetual motion. Think of it as a subterranean river, powerful and unseen, dictating the course of everything above ground, shaping valleys and driving mighty currents, completely indifferent to the individual droplets it carries. Most of humanity, according to Schopenhauer's uncompromising worldview, lives entirely at the mercy of this relentless, often cruel will. They are, in essence, its intricately crafted puppets, blindly, instinctually driven by its pervasive impulses. Their entire existence becomes a relentless, often exhausting pursuit of the will's endless, recursive desires, the basic cravings for food and shelter, the primal urge for reproduction, the social imperative for status and recognition, the fleeting allure of pleasure, the desperate yearning for external validation. They are caught in a relentless, almost Sisyphean cycle of wanting, experiencing fleeting satisfaction, only to want again, often with an even greater intensity. This insatiable craving is what Schopenhauer termed the will to live. It manifests as a powerful, instinctual urge to perpetuate existence, to avoid pain at all costs, and to constantly seek gratification, however transient. This overwhelming driving force dictates their priorities, shapes their every perception, and forms the very fabric of their carefully constructed reality. They are not truly choosing, they are being driven. Consider the common, almost ritualistic pursuits of daily life that consume the vast majority of human energy and attention. The tireless, often brutal, climb of the corporate career ladder, the relentless consumer-driven chase after an ever-increasing array of material possessions, each promising a fleeting moment of joy before becoming commonplace. The desperate, aching yearning for romantic connection, often conflated with ultimate happiness, the endless, hypnotic scroll through digital feeds, seeking momentary bursts of social media validation. Schopenhauer would argue with his characteristic starkness that these are not genuine pursuits of lasting happiness or profound meaning, but merely the myriad manifestations of the blind, insatiable will to live, cleverly disguised by the individual's own consciousness as personal choice, as self-actualization. Each achieved desire, each transient conquest, simply gives birth to a new, often more elaborate craving, leading to an eternal, restless, and ultimately unsatisfying cycle. The world, as seen through the lens of the will, is not a garden of delights, but a vast, interconnected, and suffering-ridden web, each being relentlessly driven by its own particular, yet universally similar manifestation of this blind, cosmic force. For the vast majority of humanity, this constant, repetitive striving feels utterly normal, even desirable. It's the default setting, the accepted rhythm of life, the very blueprint of their being. They construct elaborate systems of belief, intricate social norms, and endless streams of distractions, from entertainment to competitive sports, to keep the true nature of the will, its inherent irrationality, its terrifying blindness, its endless dissatisfaction from ever becoming apparent to their conscious minds. They live comfortably, almost somnambulistically, within the veil of Maya, a powerful metaphor Schopenhauer eloquently borrowed from ancient Indian philosophy. This veil represents the profound illusion of individuality, the apparent separateness of things, and the comforting but false belief that phenomena exist independently of the underlying will. This shimmering veil shields them from the raw, chaotic, suffering-laden reality of the underlying will. They are content with the representation of the world, the way it appears to them through their senses and conventional understanding, rather than confronting the terrifying, unvarnished truth of what it is. Their consciousness is intensely practical, focused entirely on navigating the superficial world of appearances, on fulfilling the immediate, pressing dictates of the will. This fundamental orientation towards survival, material comfort, social acceptance, and the endless acquisition of fleeting pleasures forms the bedrock of what society collectively values and tirelessly reinforces. It is, in essence, a vast, unspoken collective agreement to ignore the deeper, more unsettling, and inconvenient truths of existence. Now into this intricately woven tapestry of illusion and collective striving, enter the intelligent person. Unlike the majority, whose intellect, however sharp, serves predominantly as a mere sophisticated tool for the will's practical purposes, a means to acquire resources more efficiently, to strategize for greater social gain, to invent new, more potent pleasures, or to construct more elaborate self-deceptions, the highly intelligent individual possesses a rare and profoundly distinct capacity, the will to truth. This is not merely a quantitative difference, not just a stronger or faster intellectual capacity. It's a fundamental, qualitative shift in orientation, a different axis upon which their consciousness rotates. Their mind is not content to simply serve the will. As a diligent servant, it seeks to understand it, to penetrate the shimmering, deceptive veil of Maya, and to gaze unflinchingly upon the raw, unadorned reality that lies churning beneath, however uncomfortable that vision might be. This pursuit of truth for the intelligent person is not merely an academic exercise, a dry intellectual curiosity confined to dusty libraries. It's an existential imperative, a burning, undeniable need that defines their very being. The intelligent person, through their heightened awareness, their sharpened analytical prowess, and their capacity for deep reflection, begins to perceive the fundamental irrationality, the ultimate futility of the will to live. They see with excruciating clarity the endless, circular, often futile striving. They discern the inherent, inescapable suffering woven into the very fabric of existence. They recognize the heartbreakingly fleeting nature of all worldly pleasures, and they grasp the ultimate, profound emptiness of conventional worldly ambition, the way it perpetually promises fulfillment but delivers only transient satisfaction. They comprehend that the pursuit of external gratification is a perpetual treadmill, always moving, always demanding more effort, but never truly arriving at a state of genuine, lasting contentment. This piercing insight is not comforting. It is, more often than not, profoundly disrupting, a violent tremor that shakes the very foundations of their perceived reality. Imagine trying to explain the intricate, often brutal mechanics of a complex, whirring industrial machine to someone who believes it is simply a magical toy producing delightful sounds. The intelligent person is desperately trying to show the gears grinding, the cogs ceaselessly turning, the relentless, often painful, friction of the will, while society, entranced, is still marveling at the pretty lights and melodious, albeit artificial, sounds emanating from the surface. When the intelligent person begins to speak, to question, to unveil these deeper, uncomfortable realities, they aren't just introducing new ideas or challenging prevailing opinions. They are, in effect, holding up a polished, unforgiving mirror that reflects the uncomfortable truth of the will's endless, unsatisfying striving directly back at those who would rather remain oblivious. And people, by and large, do not want to see that reflection. They avert their gaze, recoil, or lash out. This is precisely where the profound conflict arises. Society, largely unconscious and deliberately oblivious to the will's true, brutal nature, is meticulously built upon a fragile foundation of comforting illusions and carefully constructed practical realities. Its norms, its collective values, its very definition of success and happiness are all intricate constructs subtly designed to keep individuals happily, or at least numbly and productively, pursuing the will's dictates. The intelligent person, by daring to see beyond these intricately woven constructs, by perceiving their artificiality, becomes an unwelcome anomaly. Their very presence, their calm, analytical gaze, their piercing questions challenges the prevailing narrative, the shared dream that underpins daily life. They ask questions no one wants to answer because the answers are too painful. They point to fundamental flaws no one wants to acknowledge because acknowledging them would dismantle their perceived stability. They expose the artificiality and hollowness of pursuits others hold sacred, pursuits that give meaning to their unexamined lives. This is not perceived as wisdom, as a gift of clarity, but as a direct existential threat to the established order, to the collective comfort, to the comforting lie. This perceived threat triggers a primal, subconscious response in society. It's not necessarily active malice, not a conscious desire to harm, but a deeply ingrained, almost biological, self-preservation mechanism. If the intelligent person's insights are acknowledged, if their uncomfortable truths are embraced, it means confronting the painful, unsettling truth of the will's endless, unsatisfying nature. It means questioning everything they thought they knew about purpose, about happiness, about the very meaning of their lives. It means admitting that much, perhaps even all, of their frantic striving might be ultimately futile, leading only to more craving. This is a level of profound existential discomfort that most people will instinctively avoid at all costs, preferring the familiar illusion to the disquieting reality. And so society almost organically pushes the intelligent person to the fringes, into the quiet corners of the collective consciousness. They are dismissed as cynical, labeled as negative, branded as overly critical, or, in extreme cases, even deemed insane or delusional. Their nuanced observations are flattened into simplistic criticisms. Their attempts to engage in deep, philosophical discussions about existence, suffering, and meaning are met with blank, uncomprehending stares, awkward, prolonged silences, or a swift, almost panicked change of topic to something more palatable, more normal. It's not that their ideas are fundamentally wrong, it's that they are too true, too unsettling, too uncomfortable. They disrupt the collective dream, the comfortable illusion that keeps the will to live perpetually active, questioned, and unchallenged. The intelligent person's inherent sensitivity, their sharpened intellect, their capacity for profound empathy also means they perceive suffering with a far greater acuity than the general populace. They don't just register the superficial pain of others, they empathize deeply with the universal suffering inherent in the will's ceaseless, often cruel, striving. They see the tragic grandeur of human existence, the fleeting nature of all joys, and the inevitable, relentless march towards disappointment and ultimate annihilation. This profound awareness, this unblinking gaze upon the inherent suffering of the world, often leads to a melancholic disposition, a contemplative nature that is fundamentally at odds with the superficial optimism, the forced cheerfulness, and the often facile solutions offered by the majority. While others might seek to drown their existential anxieties in the relentless pursuit of entertainment, in the intoxicating rush of material acquisitions, or in the frantic noise of social validation, the intelligent person finds these distractions hollow, even painful, further deepening their already pervasive sense of alienation. Their capacity for joy is not diminished, but it becomes refined, found in rare moments of profound understanding, in the quiet contemplation of beauty, or in the serene expanses of aesthetic experience, rather than in the fleeting, ultimately unsatisfying satisfactions of the will. This stark, fundamental contrast in how they derive meaning, how they experience the very essence of the world, solidifies their status as an inherent outsider. The solitude they experience is not always a choice, not always a desired state. It is often imposed by a society that finds their very existence a disturbing, echoing mirror of truths it would rather, at all costs, ignore. So what then is the intelligent person to do if the very faculty that defines them, their profound intellect, their insatiable will to truth, leads inexorably to such an isolating, melancholic existence? Is there any solace, any true respite from this perpetual, often painful, disconnect? Schopenhauer, for all his uncompromising pessimism and bleak assessments of the human condition, offered a radical, if profoundly demanding, path towards liberation, a means to transcend the very suffering he so eloquently described. He understood that the intellect, though initially a source of profound pain and alienation through its stark revelations, was also the only means, the singular tool, to pierce and ultimately transcend the very will it exposes. It is the sharp, exquisitely honed knife that cuts through the shimmering, deceptive veil of Maya, allowing the intelligent person to glimpse, however fleetingly, something profound that lies beyond the relentless, dissatisfying striving. The first, and perhaps most accessible temporary escape from the incessant tyranny of the will, is through aesthetic contemplation. When we truly, wholly immerse ourselves in the sublime beauty of art, in the intricate harmonies of music, in the boundless majesty of nature, or even in the profound, structured elegance of philosophical thought, our intellect detaches itself for a precious interval from the relentless service of the will. We stop perceiving objects as things to be desired, as tools to be utilized, or as means to an end. Instead, we perceive them purely as representation, as ideal Platonic forms, stripped of their utility and individual particularity. In these rare, luminous moments, the restless, gnawing striving of the will is quieted, silenced. We become, for a brief transcendent time, a pure, will-less subject of knowing. Think of losing yourself so completely in the soaring crescendo of a symphony that your individual identity dissolves, where the notes wash over you without concern for their utility or your personal desires, or standing awestruck before a magnificent, untamed landscape, your personal anxieties and cravings dissolving into the sheer grandeur of the scene, or even in the quiet absorption of a complex mathematical proof, where the elegance of pure reason overtakes all worldly concern. In these moments, the intelligent person experiences a profound, temporary respite from the incessant, often exhausting demands of the will, finding a unique, profound peace that is unattainable through any material possession or fleeting pleasure. This is a fleeting glimpse of liberation, a temporary stepping outside the suffering inherent in existence, a precious window into a different mode of being. However, true, lasting, and comprehensive liberation, according to Schopenhauer's demanding philosophy, demands a more profound and rigorous commitment, a path few are willing or able to traverse: the denial of the will. This is not a passive acceptance of suffering, not a surrender to despair, but an active, conscious, deliberate choice to negate, to silence the impulses of the will to live within oneself. It involves practices often associated with asceticism, a detachment from worldly desires, a conscious rejection of the endless craving for external gratification, and a deep, empathetic understanding of the shared, universal suffering of all being. It is a recognition that the individual will within oneself is merely a particular manifestation, a single ripple of the vast, universal will, and by consciously negating one's own desires, by quieting the personal manifestation, one weakens the will itself, chipping away at its cosmic power. This profound path leads, paradoxically, to an expansive, radical compassion for all life, as the intelligent person, having shed the egoic demands of their own will, recognizes that every living thing, from the smallest insect to the grandest human, is a fellow sufferer, caught in the same relentless, often cruel, grip of the blind, cosmic will. This universal, unselfish empathy becomes a guiding principle, a moral compass, replacing the selfish, self-serving drives of individual desire. This profound realization that suffering is not an aberration, but inherent to existence driven by the will, paradoxically leads not to deeper despair or nihilism, but to a profound, quiet peace. By accepting the true, unvarnished nature of reality, by no longer striving for an impossible, lasting satisfaction from the will, by letting go of the desperate clinging, the intelligent person frees themselves from its insidious chains. They learn to find peace not in spite of suffering, but through the deep, empathetic understanding of its universality and its true origin. They no longer cling desperately to fleeting pleasures or fear inevitable pains, but they have seen the true underlying mechanism of existence, its transient nature, and its ultimate emptiness of lasting fulfillment. This is a deep, quiet contentment, an inner tranquility, a profound equanimity that transcends external circumstances, a calm amidst the storm of life. For the intelligent person, this arduous inner journey becomes their true home, their ultimate sanctuary. While the vast majority of society continues its frantic, often desperate dance, chasing after fleeting phantoms of happiness, grasping at shadows, the intelligent individual stands apart, observing with a calm, penetrating gaze, their inner world a vast, quiet reservoir. Their solitude is no longer a burdensome imposition by a misunderstanding society, but a sacred, chosen space for deeper introspection, for profound understanding, and for the cultivation of inner peace. They may be physically alone, navigating a world that often baffles them, but they are profoundly, intimately connected to the fundamental reality of the universe. This detachment from the superficial allows them to see the world not as a source of personal frustration or unfulfilled desire, but as a grand, unfolding tragicomic drama of the will, observed with a sense of tragic grandeur, an almost aesthetic appreciation, and a profound, universal, empathetic understanding. They are not seeking conventional happiness, the fleeting joy of the will's gratification, but a rare form of wisdom and inner peace that is only accessible through the very intellect that once caused their profound isolation. Their curse has, through deliberate cultivation and profound insight, transformed into a unique capacity for liberation, for a life lived authentically and deeply. So what does this all mean for you, the intelligent person who has often felt the heavy weight of this profound disconnect, this nagging sense of being out of step with the world around you? Schopenhauer's stark yet illuminating insights offer a potent, if challenging, reflection. Society's inherent aversion to deep thinkers, its subtle sidelining of those who pierce illusions, is not born of conscious malice or deliberate cruelty, but of a primal, subconscious fear of the raw, unadulterated truth that intelligence in its highest, most refined form cannot help but reveal. It is the fear of gazing upon the blind, ceaseless striving of the will and recognizing the inherent suffering woven into the very fabric of existence, a truth that dismantles the comforting narratives of progress and inevitable happiness. The intelligent person, by simply being, by seeing beyond the comforting, convenient illusions, becomes a living challenge to the collective dream, a mirror reflecting precisely what most people desperately wish to ignore, to keep safely tucked away in the shadows of their unconscious. But here lies the profound beauty, the ultimate paradox, and the deeply liberating message embedded within Schopenhauer's often somber philosophy. This intellectual journey, though undeniably isolating in its initial stages, is the only path to true, unvarnished understanding and a profoundly different, more authentic kind of fulfillment. Your heightened awareness, your sharper sensory perception of the world's underlying currents, your innate capacity for deeper insight, is not merely a burden, a heavy cross to bear. It is the very tool, the finely honed instrument by which you can transcend the relentless, often painful, demands of the will. While the majority remains perpetually tethered to the endless, exhausting cycle of desire and fleeting satisfaction, caught in the current of the will, you possess the rare capacity to observe, to detach, to understand, and ultimately to find a profound, quiet peace in that very understanding. This isn't about escaping the world in a physical sense or withdrawing into an ivory tower of pure thought. It's about seeing the world for what it truly is, with piercing clarity and universal compassion, rather than through the distorted lens of personal craving. It's about cultivating an inner sanctuary where the clamor and demands of the will can be quieted through the transformative power of aesthetic contemplation and profound philosophical insight. It only means accepting that your path will be inherently different, perhaps solitary in many conventional ways, but ultimately it will be richer, more authentic, and imbued with a significance that profoundly transcends the superficial metrics of conventional success or happiness. Your solitude, therefore, is not an emptiness, a barren void, but a vast, silent, fertile space for profound realization, for the blossoming of a unique wisdom. The world, in its collective slumber, may not always understand you. It may even subtly or overtly fear the uncomfortable truths you perceive. the illusions you inadvertently shatter. But remember, the greatest clarity, the most profound insights often come from standing apart, from daring to look where others instinctively turn away, from swimming against the powerful current of conventional thought. Your intellect is not a curse, not a punishment, but a rare and potent compass, a luminous guide directing you towards a profound, quiet wisdom that lies far beyond the reach of common illusions. Embrace your depth, cultivate your inner world with diligence and care. For it is there, in the serene silence of deep understanding, in the quiet clarity of knowing, that the intelligent spirit finds its truest, most enduring home, not in a world that fears its light, but in the boundless, serene expanse of its own profound realization. You are not just seeing the world, you are seeing through it, perceiving its underlying machinery, and in that radical clarity lies a freedom and a unique kind of peace that the masses, perpetually driven by the will, can only ever dimly dream of. Thank you for joining us on this profound, challenging, yet ultimately liberating journey into the depths of Arthur Schopenhauer's thought. May his uncompromising yet illuminating insights illuminate your own unique path, transforming potential isolation into profound liberation. If this powerful perspective resonated with your own experiences, with the quiet knowing in your own heart, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who might also understand the weight and beauty of this perspective, and subscribing to our channel for more explorations into the enduring wisdom of history's most profound and provocative thinkers.